Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are here today to talk with Dr. Natalie, who didn't show up until now. I think she has something to solve for in this morning. Maybe she's going to be a little bit late. And until there, we are going to talk to teacher Thais. As you can see, I still a student. I still learning how to speak English, and she is the person responsible for part of my English learning process. So, Thais, please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Thais. Um, I'm a teacher at Ebony. I always confuse how long I've been at Ebony. I think it's 5 years. I've been saying 5 years lately, like for this whole year. So hopefully I'm right this time. I think I've been a teacher for 5 years. So I'm here today to talk to Dr. Natalie, but she hasn't shown so far. So I'm just going to share a little bit of my experience with English, my experience as a teacher. So if you have any questions at any time, please do ask. Feel free to ask. So first, my experience with English. I have always loved English. I have always been a huge fan of the language. And I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to buy me these tapes. I don't even know if you know what tapes are, but before Blu-ray and DVD, we used to rent like movies and we used to watch movies on tapes. So my mom used to buy these tapes on newspaper or something. But anyway, it was called Magic English. It was about learning English with Disney characters. And yeah, there are a lot of
Oh, no,
yes.
you're back. It was broken, but now it's okay.
Okay. So I know that there are a lot of conflicts with Disney for a lot of racist predictions that they've made. And also, I think that there is a whole conflict with having so many princess stories and just thinking that this is the goal to achieve, that we should be princesses and queens and, have people to serve us. But anyway, this is how I learned. My mom used to buy me Magic English tapes. So I learned a lot from like Mowgli. I know that there were a lot of other movies, but Mowgli is the one that touched my heart. I remember to this day that I used to learn with the songs and like Mowgli jumping with the bear. Baloo, right? Was the name of the bear. Oh my God, I loved that movie. So I think that was my first experience with English. That's the thing that I remember. But after that, as time went by, I also started to watch TV like for the whole day because as I was a teenager, Magic English was back when I was a kid, so I was very little. But then my experience with English after that was when I was a teenager, I guess, because I studied in the morning and I didn't really have anything else to do in the afternoon except like my house. So I had to leave my house, me and my brother. I think there's something wrong with the connection. To be honest, to me, it's working perfectly. But it seems like you're having trouble to hear me out, right? Is it better now?
Now it's better, but I don't know what's happening. You sound like a little robot, like blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So if it's okay now, I'll continue. But if it continues to break, I'm just going to try to find a different spot in my house because it might be the room I'm at.
No, it's okay now. Maybe it's the thing, the house, the place in your house.
Yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, me and my brother, we were responsible to like clean the house because my mom was working. So me and my younger brother had to clean the house after school, and I would do that watching TV. When I was a teenager, there was no Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever. So I had to watch like Sony Entertainment or Warner Channel. And these TV channels, they have like, I don't know, one series broadcast like 3 or 4 times a day, the same episode. And another thing is, um, you were watching TV with the subtitles on, and all of a sudden there were no subtitles anymore. So I was super excited watching a series, and then when I wanted to understand what was happening, and it was usually at the end of the episode, I was like, what is going on? I don't know what's happening at the end of the episode. So as time went by, and because I had to watch the same episode over and over again, there was a moment in my life where I was like, wow, I can actually understand what these people are saying. And yeah, I have to confess that I started by watching Friends, which I know it's a copy of Living Single, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know Living Single. I wasn't so much, I wasn't very aware of Black culture. I wasn't as woke as I am today, some people would say. So, well, actually, Ebony is responsible for a lot of the Blackness I recognize in myself nowadays. So back then, I didn't know Ebony, and I watched Friends, and this is basically how I learned. And then there was also this process, which I think is something familiar to a lot of people. I started to realize that I could understand what people were saying, but I didn't have anyone to practice with. So I didn't really know if I could actually speak. All I knew is that I was able to hear. So then I started to repeat the everything people were saying, like the lines I heard on music, but mostly on TV shows. And that would drive my family crazy because we were watching TV and I would just like, I don't know, we were watching something not for me to practice. We were watching because they wanted to like watch a movie or watch series. I remember my family used to watch Lost. I don't even know if you know this series, but they used to watch Lost and I hated it. I thought it was so boring. So the only thing that
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. It's boring.
I hated it. So the only thing that made me feel excited about it was like, oh, um, maybe I could try to repeat the lines of what these people are saying. And I used to do that. And for a while, like in the beginning of the episodes, my family was kind of okay. But there was a moment where they were like, please stop. I know you're practicing, but we can't do this anymore. Like, it's just horrible. We either listen to you or pay attention to the story. We can't do both. So after a while, my mom was supposed to get a promotion in her job. So she told me, when I get a promotion, you're going to study English, because I had never studied English before, except in school. I went to private schools most of my school life. So I did have English at school, but I also went to a religious school. And so, like, I can speak for all religious schools. And when we say religious in Brazil, you know that that means like, it doesn't mean like, I don't know, something that has to do with African religious. It's always about like Catholic schools, or in my case, it was Adventist. But anyway, like in the school that I went to, it was more important to have a teacher who belonged to the church than having a teacher who was like extremely good at his profession. So I remember that I had a teacher who said stuff like she does instead of she does. So I was a teenager, so I went pretty hard on that. I remember that one day, I already knew stuff. So I remember that one day my teacher said, "The people who already know the content that I'm learning don't need to stay in room. You can just leave." So I just stood up and left. But now I know that's very disrespectful. I mean, she shouldn't have given me the option anyway, but I know it was disrespectful now. Um, so even though I did have English in school, and I have to acknowledge that that was also helpful, even though I wasn't learning as much as I see that other schools, regular schools teach nowadays, it helped me keep in touch with the language. So I have to acknowledge that that was important for my learning process as well. So I had never studied English before. My mom was supposed to get this promotion at her job, and she said, "As soon as I do, you're going to study English." But that took a long time. Like, we waited for that promotion for quite a bit. And then when it finally happened, I think it was the day she got the promotion. Like, she walked in the house, she opened the door and said, "Look for an English school for you." And I was like, "Yay!"
I can see it. I can see her doing exactly like that. Like, please search for the school.
Yeah, that's exactly what you did. So I looked for schools, and I have this thing like, if you don't give me a budget, I'm gonna look for some expensive things. I was gonna curse, but since this is a live transmission, I think I better not.
You
So
would say that F word, like, I know, I feel you.
So I like to look for expensive things. And then I looked for like really expensive schools. I live in Sao Paulo, so I looked for very expensive schools. Well, to be honest, I don't live in Sao Paulo anymore. Now I live in Cotia, but I used to live in Sao Paulo. So I found two schools and I interviewed with one of them. And it was a great experience for me in terms of learning, because honestly, I had never spoken with anyone in English before. I was very nervous, even though like I was the client. I was the one who should be, I knew that they were not supposed to treat me bad or anything. But at the same time, I was kind of like, what's going to happen if I don't know how to speak English? So I went there, and there were a lot of things that I did. Well, not a lot, a couple of things that I didn't know how to say. I wanted to say like, "Oh, my mom works for the government." This is what I say nowadays, but I didn't know how to say it. So I was like, "My mom works," and then I would be like, what? The same way some students behave nowadays, like they just stop talking, just analyze, read the room, see how people are responding. And then they were like, I was like, governo, but the person who spoke with me, who was also the coordinator of the school, she was like, "It's cool, keep going." So it was actually pretty good, and she said I had a pretty good grammar basis, and I should skip a lot of levels and just start at the conversation level. And that's what I did. It was very important for me. I learned, I grew, I developed my skills. I see that. But at the same time, it was a very white school. I was the only Black student, and I was so in those days, I must have been around 17 or 18, something like that. So like still a teenager. And so I studied with a lot of other teenagers too. But it was just so weird. For those of you who live in Sao Paulo, like my mom and I, we used to live in Belém. Belenzinho, like Moca. And the school was at Anália Franco. So, Anália Franco feels like they are the, I don't know, Moema of Zona Leste. Those people were just so elitist. It was like bad. It was like a hard experience because it also taught me a lot. But at the time, it was hard because, as I said, I had to wait for my mom to get a promotion at her job to be able to enter that school. And everyone else in my room, they were like wealthy. So their life was like talk about how much their family traveled and all the gifts that their family was bringing to them on each trip. And I know that's cool. Like now, I know a lot of Black people who do that too. So I'm like, yeah, you go, brother, you go, sister. But back then, it was just a bunch of white teenagers talking about things that they were interested in buying. And me, like, I took the bus to go to the school every day. My mom would pick me up after sometimes. And like that was pretty much my experience. And everyone else was just like, oh, I go to this very fancy school and I have a lot of like different experiences from your life. So I learned, it taught me, but it was hard. So anyway, I think I studied.
You can hear this banging on the wall.
Now that you mentioned, yeah,
Oh
but
my God. I need to get my phone because they started now. Just a minute, please.
okay. Should
Oh
I
my
keep going?
God. Yeah, you can.
Okay. So I actually will keep going because I think Marta has heard a part of this, a lot of stories multiple times. So anyway, I studied at this school for like 2 years, I think. And then another thing my mom had planned for me was like, well, you're going to study English for a little bit in Brazil, and then I wanted to study abroad. Like I wanted to spend like 6 months abroad just working on your English skills and things like that. So this is something that I'm very grateful for because I was very young and I didn't really know anyone. I didn't know any Black person who had done that. I knew a couple Black people who had traveled abroad, but not spent a long time abroad just to study English. And so I'm very grateful for my mom for like putting this into perspective in my life because when I was like 18, I wouldn't have thought of that. I know this is something that my students think about, for example, because now it's something that Ebony tries to bring like all the time. It's one of our main goals. We want students to learn English just so that they know that they can travel, that the English they have is usually enough because we have this problem of feeling like we're not enough, that what we know is not enough to travel or to communicate with people around the world, but it actually usually is. So now I have students who are like 13 and they're already thinking about studying abroad just to study English or to go to high school abroad. So this is something that just fills my heart. So anyway, I went abroad. I lived in Canada for a while. And this is funny because this is also something that I find very important in these activities that we have with Ebony, which is like to know that we have Black people all around the world. I remember when my mom first decided for me that I was going to travel, one of my brothers, I have an older brother too, he's 9 years older than me. He didn't want me to go. He was like, "What are you thinking? Don't you know that Canada is gonna be like those programs that we have here on Brazil that is called De Volta para Minha Terra?" He said, you're going to get there and people are going to send you back because they're not into Black people. What are you thinking? Don't do that. Stay in Brazil. But I didn't listen to him because I thought he always says that. Like every time we have conversation, now he has traveled too. He had never been abroad back then. So now he has, and he knows that things are a little bit different. So anyway, he didn't want me to go because he said, what are you thinking? There are no Black people there. What are you going to do there? And it was funny because I went there and I just saw a lot of Black people, like not in the place where I was, not in the house where I lived, but I saw a lot of Black people there. There's a huge Black community in Canada. So this was a really good experience for me. I stayed in a house. People always ask me that, like, what do you think is better? Do you think it's better to live with other people, like in a university, or do you think it's better to live with a family? And even though I have never had the experience of living in a university or of sharing a room with other people who are having the same experience that you are, I always say that I think it's better to stay in a house within a family, in a household, because you get to experience their culture. And because you also don't have the option to speak Portuguese. When you live in a university, it's cool. It's great to live with people who are sharing the same experience that you are, but they are also learning. So there might be things that are difficult to you that are also difficult for them. So you might not learn as much. So I stayed in a household and it was great for me. Before we started this meeting, Marta and I were talking about some trouble we've had in terms of like talking to people and using the wrong word. And I have a couple stories to share about that. So I'm going to tell you about one that was successful and one that was not so much. When I first started, I went to this, my family picked me up. I think my family picked me up at the airport. I don't know, like this was 10 years ago. So some of the memories are not as clear in my head. But I think my family picked me up at the airport. And then I was telling them about back in those days, I don't eat meat anymore, but 10 years ago I did. So I was telling them that I didn't know how to say it, so I wanted to say I had colesterol alto, because they were asking me if I had any food restrictions. And I wasn't expecting that. I should have, but I wasn't. So they asked me, like, do you have any food restrictions? Like maybe you don't eat pork or something like that. And I was like, I have, and then I was in my mind like, oh my God, how am I going to say colesterol alto? So I knew alto. So I said, no, I think I said I have problems with cholesterol. And then they were like, oh, okay, yeah, you have restrictions with cholesterol. Okay, we'll be watching that then. So I was like, yes. And that was like my very first conversation with them. So I was super nervous. And then there was also a day that I was talking about, this brand. Now it's not even fancy anymore or whatever. But 10 years ago, everybody in Brazil wanted to wear Echo. Echo Unlimited. Yeah. So the brand with the rhino. But I had no idea how to say rinoceronte in English. So I went to this outlet and I was talking to my house sister. And she was asking me like, oh, how was your day? And I was like, oh, it was great. I found this outlet and I bought a couple t-shirts, because here in Brazil, they were so expensive. But in Canada, I spent like $5 in a t-shirt full of strass, super fancy. And also remember that 10 years ago, it was before this government we had. So the dollar was like 2 reais. So I spent 10 reais on a t-shirt, on an Echo t-shirt full of, stress and full of colors. So I was super
The
happy.
perfect one, like cheap, cheap, cheap.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, it was great. I bought this t-shirt from this brand. But because it costs $5, I figured it wasn't like such a big thing in Canada. So I was like, well, I don't know if you know this brand, but in Brazil it's like a really big deal. It's like I think it's like Aeropostal or postal, I don't know nowadays. In the US and in Canada, they just don't care about this brand. But in Brazil, we are like, oh, Hollister, I gotta have a hood from Hollister, but it's nothing there. So I was trying to tell her about this brand, and I was like, so I asked, do you know this brand, Echo? And she was like, no. So I was like, oh, it's that brand with the. But then I thought of saying like, the animal with chifre, but I didn't know how to say chifre either. So I was like, it's this brand with that animal,
That big
rhinoceros.
one.
And she was like, oh, you mean a rhino? And I was like, yes, that is exactly what I mean. Thank you. But I felt so embarrassed because I felt like I was trying this, what we call in Brazil, like embromation. So I was feeling so embarrassed by that experience. But she was totally cool. So I think this is also another very important thing to consider when you travel abroad. Like, think about the people you're sharing the house with. I do think it's important to be in a household instead of a university or something like that. But it's also important to consider the options you have. Like, make sure you have the option to leave if you want to, if you need it. I didn't have to do that because I stayed with an excellent family. But also consider how long of how much experience they have in this whole thing of taking students in the house I was. My family had been doing that for like 8 or 9 years, so they had a long time of experience. And even in that case, I spent a couple months there, so I saw some people who had trouble, like students who, I don't know, like they were very young. So they came from places, from countries where they didn't have as much freedom as we do in Brazil. I mean, like, culturally speaking, we can say that black people are actually free in Brazil, but like teenagers, they couldn't, I don't know, their parents wouldn't allow them to go out to party with their friends. So I met a lot of Korean people who just went, and to be honest, a lot of Brazilian people too, that just wanted to party. Like, they didn't care about anything else. They just wanted to take the opportunity of being away from their parents to just like party and drink and just, in my case, I didn't want to do that because I knew how much my mom had struggled to pay for my trip. So I was like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm not gonna like spoil it by just having parties every day, and just like not studying, because when you party every day, you feel kind of tired, even when you're very young, you feel tired, so you don't have a lot of time to study. Oh, we
Yeah,
have a question.
we have a question, but I was thinking while you were talking. As you can see, I'm not practicing my English, so I'm losing it. I have been reading, I have been watching, listening, but I can't talk to anyone right here, so I'm losing the way to speak English. It's an important thing because I can read complex books, for example, entire books,
We
but
know
I
you
can't
can.
talk, you know. So this about your experience traveling and going to an exchange program is important. People just don't want sometimes during the classes practicing simple things like this thing about high cholesterol.
Yeah.
We are always talking about that. Take this opportunity when you are in your class with your teacher and your
friends, like, try to speak simple things, because this is the first thing you're going to hear abroad. People are going to ask you about yourself, your family, things that you want to eat. Complex conversation are going to happen later, but in the first meeting, the first conversation are going to be about simple things, and they are into our book one, for example, and
Yeah.
even book two. But sometimes people don't want to go to basic level, because they think they know all things inside, but the practicing, as you can see myself, I'm losing my English. So that's the thing. I think it's important when people think to travel abroad to study.
Yeah, I think actually book one is always a great topic for us to discuss, because just in this experience that I was telling you about when I wanted to buy the T-shirt, I had problems because I didn't know how to say a lot of clothes vocabulary. So I knew how to say like dress and T-shirt and maybe shorts, because it's the same word as it is in Portuguese. But like I didn't know how to say calça. I couldn't remember how to say meias. So sometimes I was looking for some specific things and I couldn't ask for help, because what was I gonna do? I was just gonna talk to people and say, hi, let me describe you the thing that I want to buy. So a lot of times I spend like hours in the mall because I didn't know how to say the name of the thing I was
Like
looking for.
socks. That's
So
my
it,
problem, socks. I always forget, like, socks. I just need socks, but I can't say.
yeah, you need to focus on what's kind of simple too, because sometimes when people tell you what it is, you struggle, you understand it, but when you need to speak, you kind of forget it because you're just so caught up in studying like tenses on, oh, what is present perfect, how can I
Hmm.
use that, and it's not as important sometimes as speaking, I don't know, about other stuff.
Yeah.
So Mr. Mauricio Quesongo is asking me, um, what was more difficult to you? He's asking if I'm Brazilian.
Yep.
Oh my God. Thank you, brother. Yes, I am Brazilian. Usually, teacher Nikki is the one who gets that kind of question. Yes, I'm
He's
Brazilian.
not Brazilian. That's the thing.
What?
He is not Brazilian.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I am. I'm Brazilian. I was born and raised in São Paulo. And well, I lived in Canada for a while. So sometimes when, like, to be honest, in the US, people also ask me that. My name is Thais Marie, like Marie. So a lot of people think that's Marie, so they just take me
You're
for a French
French.
person. Yeah, a lot. I've been asked that a couple times actually in the U.S. on like different occasions. But I remember there was one time when a guy asked me that, and I was like, "No, I'm Brazilian." But he was like, "You don't sound Brazilian. Where did you study?" And that was after I had been to Canada, so I was like, "Oh yeah." I spent a couple months in Canada. I lived in Canada for a while. So they were like, ah, okay, you do sound a little bit Canadian. To be honest, like I cannot tell the difference from US to Canadian accent, but I don't know.
I can
That's what I've
see it.
been. Yeah. So what was more difficult to you, speaking or listening? Um, I think I'm gonna go with listening, and this is kind, some people find that strange, but I learned as I explained. I don't know if you had already joined us, but I learned from watching TV, so I didn't have a lot of the problems like with pronunciation that most Brazilians do, because I learned from American TV, like from American TV shows. So I didn't really struggle with pronunciation in most cases, except for like words I didn't know and complex words, because those words are not very usual on TV shows. So I had a student who wanted to say like, how can I say dicotômico? Fernanda, of course. How can I say dicotômico
I
in
was
English?
there this day.
Yeah, I was like, girl, I don't know. But in most cases, I didn't struggle with pronunciation or speaking. Also because I was part of a conversation group for like 2 years, so that also helped me a lot. But sometimes I struggled because people used words I was not familiar with, or so since I studied for a long time in Brazil, like for, I mean, a long time in being self-taught, and also 2 years in these conversation classes, um some people would just say, oh, your English is very good, so they would just start talking to me as if I was like a regular citizen. And sometimes I was like, what are you saying? Oh my god, I'm totally lost in this conversation. So I have to say that listening was the most difficult part for me, but it wasn't very, very hard. And to be honest, at first, I didn't even think that my experience in Canada was that helpful. I felt like, oh, I think I know as much as I knew before I came here. Like, I don't see how that helped me. But also, it was because I had a teacher who said that to me. So I think this actually moves us to a different topic, which is to say you have to acknowledge, you have to know on your own how good you are. Of course, you can always have a teacher to and ask for feedback, and this is something that I always do with my students. Every now and then, they're like, "Oh, teacher, maybe we could have like an one-on-one conversation so you could just evaluate how we're doing or give us some feedback on things we need to practice a little bit better." But I think it's important that you do this to yourself. Like, try to understand, try to evaluate how much you've developed. Think of something, an activity you did in the beginning of the year, or a talk you had with someone in the beginning of the year, and how well you're understanding things now. Um, because this is what's going to be like the most helpful experience you could have. So in my case, I had this teacher who told me I was not evolving. Like, he said, I think you're having the same um you have the same abilities as you did when you first got here. And I was like, okay. But that was only because like I had problems to understand the difference of saying like two and two, like very in as in I have two brothers or I have to talk to you. I couldn't understand the difference in these pronunciations. And honestly, he didn't know how to explain it to me either. He was like, well, it's just different. Like, it's two and two. Two is much stronger and two is very light. And I just like, to me, he was saying the same word over and over again. So this is something like, I think this is what makes a difference in my experience as a teacher, because I was able to like think of ways to connect Portuguese to English, to bring something that people already know, and then take them to a next level where they can start to think of something in English and don't even have to think about Portuguese anymore. So for me, because this is a very personal experience, I always try to like point to my students where their tongue should be, like tongue, where their tongue should be in conversations. So like when you say, sometimes when you say a word, oh my god, now it's in my
And now it's there.
oh my god. So I used to I actually always tell my students, like, there are moments when you're going to say a word and your tongue is going to be here, like on your cheeks. And there are moments when you're going to say things and your tongue is going to be here in front of your mouth, right behind your teeth. So this is something that I always try to do. Like, I think that's a very helpful tip. So, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's not a problem. We still with this boom, boom, boom everywhere. Every, everybody decides to remodel homes and buildings in this pandemic. I don't know what's happening to people. I think people just finally can see houses and realize that we need remakes and renovations and everything because
Yeah,
it's
I
the
don't
same
feel so
time
comfortable.
everywhere.
What?
It's the same time everywhere. Like everybody just doing this
And so many
renovation.
people are moving, right? I think this
Yeah.
might be my neighbor actually. So I live in a condo where we have three houses together, and my neighbor just moved last weekend. So I think he's doing some shaping in his house because I don't know, he moved to another city. And so many people are moving in the pandemic. This is so
Mhm.
crazy. I think I know like 7 people who went to different places.
I was texting. I'm sorry. It's our connection to our guest. She we just had problem with the time zone. That's the problem.
Mm.
She was thinking all the time, but I told that we don't have time anymore and we have to reschedule this meeting.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I think it's always a pleasure to talk about our histories,
Yeah.
especially hear from you about things that you went through to learn English, this amazing English that you have.
Mm.
Uh, I think you're a big inspiration for us, like for me, for our students. Teenagers are saying that you are the perfect teacher. So this is an opportunity to give a little bit more inspiration to them because some people just think it's not so easy to learn. But I think now we have a lot of ways to learn, like watching TV, watching YouTube. The time you have to, you don't need to wait for the same day of the week to watch the thing that you like. You can go through the internet and talk to people and listen to people. We have a lot of podcasts, so we can go to in the front of the mirror and say a lot of things. We have this Google and everything that we you don't have and I don't have at that time. I started to learn English at I think 12 years old. I only had a dictionary and nothing more.
Yeah.
Obviously, regular classes in school, public school, and I was lucky because I had two or three good teachers. But practicing speaking was not that easy. We even couldn't hear from movies because we didn't have movies in English and TV. We just had
Yeah.
translation.
Yeah. Now that you said that, I remember that actually, like, I focused on this. I studied in Adventist school for 4 years, so that that experience that I had with English teachers who didn't speak English that well was important in my life. But I also had uh, some teachers, and I think that is very important to be mentioned. So just like you said that the teenagers are saying that I'm a perfect teacher, this was also very important to me. I remember when I was in third grade, I had a teacher. I scored 9 in a test out of 10.
July.
Hi,
As you can see, he just got my other phone, the wireless phone.
the blessing of being a mom.
Yeah, the blessing of being a
We can
mom.
still see you though.
Oh my God. Let me close this Bluetooth because I think he's going to connect to something. And we are starting to hear like some music or something. Oh my God, my son.
Oh, I love him.
So Zakia is talking here, talking about Dr. Natalie. Yeah. It was the time zone. She was thinking, and she doesn't have, doesn't have, or
Yeah,
doesn't have
doesn't
WhatsApp.
have.
So she got messages, and she is a little bit outside of emails, so
Okay.
it's different. But
Totally
okay,
understandable, especially in this pandemic situation.
yeah, nobody. It's a lot of screens, so
Yeah, a lot
we
of
are
it.
going. Yeah, we are going through this TV all time, this internet all time. So let people be free of that.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Yeah. And for you,
So,
speaking or listening was more difficult.
oh, I said that, didn't I? The listening was more difficult
With
because
I didn't get.
yeah, I did. So I was actually talking about the teachers. So I had a teacher and I scored 9 on a test. And then the teacher asked something and I said, "What?" Because my uncle used to say that all the time. When I was a kid, I had an uncle who, like, every time something happened, he lived right above my house. So we were very close, and every time something happened, he would call me Marie, which is my second name. He would say, "What, Marie? Something something." So that was a word that was like always part of my life. Oh, Dr. Natalie's here. Great.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Natalie.
I am here. I apologize. Hi, good morning. Or it's morning here. I don't know what time is it there?
It is. It's 10:50 a.m.
And we were about
Okay.
to
Sorry
finish
about the
this.
confusion.
Oh, no problem. We know we were talking about this pandemic and this overwhelming internet and everything that is making us crazy. So we have only 10 minutes. I think we are going to reschedule it and in another time that better than the morning,
Yeah, good.
because mornings are confused in terms of time zone. Can you hear me? I think
Yeah, I'd be
Thais.
happy to come back. I sincerely apologize for the confusion.
Oh, no problem, my friend. We
Can you
know it's happened sometimes.
hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
but it's breaking a little bit.
Okay, so I'm breaking up.
Yeah.
But now we
Yeah,
hear
so
you. Yeah.
anytime you guys want me to come back, we can confirm.
Okay, okay. I think we are okay. We are talking about this next meeting, but we are glad that you're coming to talk to us. Your work with this cultural preservation is more than relevant for us. So we want to know about you, about your project. Actually, we know each other in person, and you went to Ebony years ago, and Thais was the teacher at the day. So
No,
it was a teenager class.
but I was not there. I don't
Really?
know. I don't know what it was, but I was not in the photo on that banner. When you told me that I met her, I was like,
Yeah,
no, no.
I was talking, it was you because you were the teenager teacher.
Yeah, but I don't know what happened. It wasn't me on that day. I am actually very jealous because they really wanted to be on that banner, but I was not.
So Natalie went to Ebony. I hope we can talk next time to hear from you about your work with go-go music and everything.
Yeah, I would love to. And I really appreciated getting to meet the people at Ebony English. I went with Zakia, was really just hanging around with her. And I'm Instagram friends with a few people who I met on there. And so it's been nice it was my second trip to Brazil that year. I think that was 2014. I think it was 2014. But
I think.
I went to Salvador, and then I also visited Rio, right? So I was lucky to go to Brazil 2 times that year. and, you know, was fascinated by all the work that you all are doing, and also, you know, how much interest there is in English and studying English in Brazil. So yes, I'm looking forward to seeing if I can catch up with, you know, see what you guys have been up to since then.
Okay, we thank you in advance because
I think I wasn't teaching at Howard full time then, so I've since, yeah.
I think we lost you. It's breaking a little bit.
Yeah, but yeah, it would be great actually to hear. This was on my list of questions because we don't have the experience of being part of a Black university. So this would be also a good part of our conversation. So we're also looking forward to it.
And the students are curious about Howard University and
so I know when I was,
sorry? I lost you, you know?
Well, one thing I would recommend, a lot of things. Do you guys get HBO there?
Yeah. We have one of them. It's Zumbi dos Palmares, right?
Let me check. Let me try to put this in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
going to say
about HBCUs, but not HBO. We have.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have HBO, there's a new film. It's called, I'm going to type it in the chat so you have it. It's called Between the World and Me. It talks about Howard University. So a lot of a couple of our friends, Zakia, we went to Howard University in the 90s. And our friend Camila Forbes is the director. And it's based on a book by Ta-Nehisi Coates called Between the World and Me. So it's Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh, I have this book.
I don't know if you all, it was a big, huge bestseller. Yeah. So they made that into a film. And it's very beautiful. And it really gives a picture of what Howard University is like. There's a whole beautiful section on Howard. And I would love it if you guys were able to watch it. And then we could talk about it, because that was my time. And that was when we were there. I was very close with Ta-Nehisi when we were in grad. And, you know, Zakia, like that was all part of an era at Howard that we were really proud to see part of this film.
Hey, that's good. Our students can watch it, and it's going to be a good point to start our next meeting with Dr. Natalie.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. This works out even better if you guys could watch that, because I told Camila that it's the greatest ad for Howard University we've ever seen. It's so beautiful. It depicts it in such a beautiful way, with the marching bands and the music and the dancers and Howard Homecoming and all of the Black beauty and energy that's there. So it's really beautiful look at Howard, but then it's also very sad because the main plot line in the book was another of our friends named Prince Jones, who was killed by the police in 2000, the year 2000. He was somebody who had gone to Howard with us, and he was killed. And the police were never brought to justice. And so there are these two very sad, very happy. There's very happy look at Howard, but then very sad because Prince Jones should be alive today. And so, you know, I know that some of these issues of police brutality are also there in Brazil. So maybe we could have a whole conversation about that as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be great. Yeah, we actually love to have that kind of activity, like to pre-assign something for the students before the talk. So that would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are finishing
And
our
then
time
I have
together. And I would like to thank you, Thais, for this amazing conversation about your experience. It's always funny and inspirational as well. And I thank you, Natalie, for coming. And in 2 minutes, you just gave us an excellent recommendation
Yeah.
to watch and to get more information about Howard. And next time, we're going to talk about it and everything about your work with culture.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and I'll also send you. I'll give you two. You could choose what you want. We just did a big Go-Go Awards performance that was filmed. It was on Facebook and YouTube. So I'll send you a link so you can get an idea of a little bit of the preservation work that I do with Go-Go
Okay.
music as well. So I'll send you those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everyone, for coming, for watching us. Our students are going to watch this live after because some of them are working or are on classes. So it's a kind of tease. Next time we are going to be here together.
Thank you.
Bye bye, people.
All right, thank you.